Hello everyone, welcome to another YRO podcast. We are speaking with James Hieb today. He is running for a seat on the City Council in Canby. Canby is located southeast of Portland. There are 4 seats available between 6 candidates. James is also a fellow member of the Young Republicans of Oregon. All right, James, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.
So to start off, can you give us a quick background about yourself and your experience that you are bringing into this position?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm a Canby native. I lived here in town for most of my childhood and adult life, other than military service. Because as a kid, I moved around the U.S. with my dad when he was in the Army, and then got out, moved back to Canby, and then I joined the Marine Corps at 17, and then wound up serving my country over in the Middle East, and then moved back home a couple of years ago, and now I just want to be able to serve my community here locally. But
Definitely. And what type of leadership positions did you hold in the military?
Oh, in the military, I wound up towards the end of my career. I wound up being what they call it FAP'd out, where I was lent to another unit to help train them for to do an infantry job over in the Middle East. And so I wound up, me and about 10 other guys wound up being in charge of training up about 800 guys to in like gunfighting tactics so that they would do okay in Iraq. So it's I wound up being kind of a low rank for infantrymen to get promoted, but I had a high billet for my rank. Typically, I wound up getting out as an E3, but I held the billet of an E5 or a sergeant. But yeah, it's the cutting scores in the military for infantrymen is a little unfair, but without going into the intricacies of that, I basically got promoted without the promotion. If you get that.
Definitely. And how's your experience been as a civilian as well?
Yeah, since I re-entered the civilian world, I wound up I've helped my mom. Whenever I first got out, I helped my mom with her private childcare business part-time, and going to college for the other half the time. And then after a couple of years there, I wound up partnering with my wife's family farm and worked with the Hoffman Farms for a few years. And then back in 2015, after my dad had passed away, I wound up jumping in full time, helping my mom with the childcare business. And since then, we've done about I think it's either 4 or 5 expansions, where we went from a residential neighborhood and wound up transferring over to a commercial facility, and then had to go through all the permitting processes to actually operate in a commercial facility. And then after that, we were able to do some construction and then double our square footage. And then about a year later, just right about the same time COVID started, we wound up going from 104 students on one day to the next day dropping down to 12 students. And so it's COVID hit our business real hard, real fast. And then, but we had kind of been planning to do some projects and some other expansions for a while. And so once COVID hit, a lot of us teachers wound up being free to work on an expansion, and we acquired another facility because the lady running that facility wound up going out of business. And so we took over her lease and added another 3,500 square foot facility. And so now I manage the one facility and my mom manages the other facility. We have about, last count was 18 teachers, but we recently hired 3 more. So I think we're right about 21 or 22 teachers. So it's I'm manage them on a regular basis. So it's a lot of work, but it's rewarding because I don't know, my grandfather was also a private business owner, and I've helped him build houses from bare ground all the way to the finished project, and then his daughter, my aunt, she was she is in real estate, so we were able to go from bare ground to selling the house, and but in 2008, the housing bubble had burst, and so I wasn't able to continue working doing construction. So yeah, but it's helped me in my current ventures now. Just always been basically working for private companies and small businesses, but nowadays I've been able to use all the experiences from like the construction to do like different expansions within our two facilities, and whether it be laying floors or making trim or repainting or anything, I'm pretty much well-rounded as far as those kind of skills go, and I feel that a lot of these skills that I bring to the table would be beneficial in the city council, because they're in the process of doing a lot of expanding right now, and the industrial area here in town. We've had Columbia Distributing and Caruso Produce recently enter the town, and then like the Canby Utility Board, they just got done with phase 2 of their new construction for their new facility. So it's having a background in business management and also the construction is really applicable in this city's current position. But
yeah, definitely, and that kind of leads me in my next question is, this State of the City address in 2019, Canby was described as in the tween stage, not yet a small town and not yet a city, but having the challenges of a city. How do you see your city's character and challenges, and how do you think this transition is being managed so far?
Well, it's so far it's been managed fairly well. So, but we have a few, and I'll throw in there, it's also been conservatively ran for a long time. It's one of the still conservative cities in the area. We're surrounded to the west and the north, and east with Democrat areas and highly Democrat controlled, and we've been able to maintain a conservative conservative town whenever the liberalism has been continuing to push in, and I want to be able to continue to fight back the Metro, who wants to move into Canby and start taxing us for all their Portland projects. And I want to keep Canby independent of the Portland metro area, and keep our sovereignty as a city. And because we've been able to do that, maintaining like our utilities through town, we buy directly from Bonneville Power Company, so we don't have to deal with PGE. We buy it all wholesale and deal with the power here. And the same with the water treatment. That's all done in town. We also have our own police force. We don't contract with the sheriffs. We also have a very strong Chamber of Commerce, and it's all a lot due to the conservative running of our town. Now we have 2 conservatives that are moving out of town, and so we're going to have 2 empty spots, and I want to fill those spots so that we maintain a conservative majority here in our city of Canby.
Yeah, and in terms of transportation, do you see Canby expanding to have better transportation towards the Portland area, or do you think that that's not necessary at this moment? Do you have good options right now?
Well, I guess the transportation we could break up into 2 segments. There's the public transportation piece, And then there's also our highway through town, which 99E. 99E runs all the way from I-5 all the way into downtown Portland. And with them talking about putting these the toll booths on 205, ODOT has forecast that it'll increase our traffic down 99E through town by at least 50% to a whole 100%. So to double traffic through town will just be a nightmare getting to work in the mornings, because 80% of our residents in town work outside of town. And right now I work in Wilsonville, just across the bridge to the north of Canby. And sometimes it's an hour to work to make it like 7 miles, just because we wind up getting bottlenecked at the I-5 bridge. And that's only going to increase worse if this tolling goes into place and we're not proactive with coming up with an alternative solution as far as our city goes. And typically, as a city councilor, you don't have the power to control ODOT, but I will take it upon myself to be down in Salem as much as I need to be to talk to each and every legislature and representative to make sure it's on their radar that they need to protect Canby from being overrun with bumper to bumper traffic every morning and afternoon. There's also with transportation, there's the public transportation part, where it's right now Metro, back about, I guess it would be about 25 years ago, I believe, they stopped running TriMet through Canby, and they just said there wasn't a need for it. And we had a partnership with TriMet where we had contracted, and at that time I actually lived in town, and my grandma was driving that route for TriMet. But yeah, it's since then Canby has created their own bus service, which they call the CAT bus, or the Canby Area Transit. And right now it only runs it runs Monday through Saturday, and it still is a little tricky, like with the commute for a lot of people, being able to take public transportation and be able to rely upon it. But here in Canby, we do have a plan, and we did a poll with the citizens, and we are going to be adding an additional bus route this next year. So it'll be a local commuter. So it'll circle the town all day and get people from, stores to back to their houses, because most people seem a little timid in calling the CAT bus to have them come to their house, because that is a service we offer here in town. But most people just, don't, they don't want to have to call ahead of time. They want to be able to just go to the bus stop and take the bus whenever on a regular basis. But we will have the city commuter in place within the next few months. And then we will be in the place where we can look at the Sunday service also, so that we'll be able to have going back and forth from the Oregon City Transit Center to the Wilsonville Transit Center on an hourly basis or twice an hour. But it's just something that the citizens of Canby have decided that they don't feel that there's a need to add that Sunday service yet, and they prefer the local commuters. So we're working with people in our own community to figure out what their priorities are, and not necessarily what the metro area's priorities are for us. It's
definitely. And with Canby being one of the safest cities in Oregon, and being located so close to Portland, Oregon, and watching the crumbling situation on the ground there, have you seen any bleed over effects with crime, homelessness, or some of the extremism affect your town?
Oh, it's not too much. We have a little bit of crime like every town has, and we have a few homeless people, but it seems like the city of Canby and a lot of the local churches, they seem to be very helpful to a lot of the people that don't have a place to live. And these churches have offered these homeless people like a means out of their situation. All the churches are asking of them is like a sober lifestyle. So I know there's one lady here in town that, you know, she was staying sober, not doing drugs, and she was being able to stay at people's houses from the churches, and she was able to eat, like, go regularly and get money from the food banks, and they supported her until, you know, she went back to drugs, and she chose to do drugs and go back and live under the bridge, and that was her own choice. It's nobody forced that upon her. And so it's we do have a big sense of community here in town, and there are a lot of people that are very good people that will, you know, reach out and help those in need, as long as those in need are willing to meet them part way. So they're not going to go out of their way just to let themselves be taken advantage of. And I really I agree with that more than what I see downtown. I see a lot of homeless people, and it, on the surface level, it seems very sad, and it is very sad. But I see a lot of people that just camp out next to, like, the Union Gospel Mission, where there's tents all up and down the road, or over by Salvation Army, where these people camp out knowing that they don't have to do anything, because dinner's going to be brought out for them every evening. Breakfast is going to be provided every morning. You know, anything they really need, it's going to be provided to them. So they're getting just enough to keep them just comfortable enough not to step up and get a job and do things on their own, which is almost handicapping these people that are plenty capable of working or of figuring something out. But they are too scared to go out their comfort zone, because they know, at least living there on the streets in front of Union Gospel Mission, they're going to get a dinner every night. They're going to get breakfast every morning. And it's surface level, it seems great, and there are many, there's wonderful intentions there. But there's a lot of people that just get trapped in that cycle where they're not incentivized to do things on their own. And here in Canby, it seems that with the majority of Canby residents being leaning conservative, that a lot of people, you know, they're willing to give people, you know, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and roof over their head, and clean clothes, as long as those individuals are willing to help themselves too. So it's
yeah.
I think the handouts, just endless handouts, are not the way to go. We need, you know, people need to be able to meet in the middle, so that it's mutually beneficial, and that people aren't just taking advantage of the taxpayer system.
Yeah, and with the COVID declaration of state of emergency being declared in March, how has the current city council used that, and how should they have used that, if you disagree?
Well, it's very split here in Canby on the city council currently. Well, I guess there's about, the mayor's stance right now is that the governor's requirements and regulations are sufficient, and that we don't really need to make any extra regulations. And I kind of agree with that. I'm operating a small business in Wilsonville, and we've got regulations, like packets of regulations, like 100 pages long, and we're having to condense that down to like a one flyer for parents to read. And we were able to condense it to 4 pages worth of regulations that parents have to abide by when they drop off. And those same regulations are happening here in Canby. And I've been asked by people if I am going to ask for more regulations or a declaration of some sort. And I don't really feel that that's necessary here in town. We have a lot of regulations. There's a lot of people here in town that are abiding by those regulations, and I think it's enough. It's I spend a lot of time outside these days because I don't want to be cooped up inside all day. But yeah, it seems like with these regulations, anywhere you go indoors, you have to wear the mask, and it's I don't know. It's the times right now where everybody has to do the mask. We're doing the hand sanitizer, washing our hands, keeping the social distancing, and I don't really see at a city level that adding anything else is going to be beneficial in any way, shape, or form.
And are there any other areas that Canby has been impacted by the lockdowns and COVID and businesses and all that?
Well, Canby, the Canby schools still are not being able to meet in person, and it's I wouldn't be controlling the school board being on the city council, but there are a lot of people in town that just want their kids to be able to go back and attend school in class, and I support that. I look at the people that are at risk to COVID. They're not attending school. They're they're elderly or people with underlying conditions. Most of our youth in the schools between K and 12th grade, they're not the at risk. 99.995% of them will live through COVID. And then that, I don't know, the math in my head, it's like 1 out of 100,000 people outside of that risk be hurt. But that's like, we look at here in Canby, we're having more suicides than we're having COVID deaths. We're having more people have health implications, and like there are elderly people that are not going to the hospital out of fear of catching COVID and ignoring their strokes or ignoring their heart attacks, and because out of fear. And the cycle of fear that people have gotten into is not healthy, not at all. So for people that choose to live in fear it just saddens me, because we're being fed this constant narrative that I've seen ads that's like, I stayed home today so we don't kill anybody. I see billboards or signs of people say, did you kill anybody today, referring to COVID. And then our kids are reading this. Wow. Like, and they're at that point in time where they're so impressionable that they're like, my niece lives here in Canby. She was having panic attacks at like 8 years old, 9 years. I think she's 9. Yeah, 9 now. Thank you, Emma. But she having constant panic attacks and anxiety about leaving her house because she thinks she's going to die from COVID or she's going to kill somebody. And the reality of it is that, well, for one, she doesn't have COVID, so she can't infect anybody with COVID. For two, she's not in the risk, like at risk at all. And so it's to be causing this, I don't know, mental health problems for our children over something that is not even a threat to them. It just seems absurd to me. But on the other hand, with the elderly care homes that we have, like here in town in Canby, I do know that we did have a couple deaths with COVID. People died with COVID in their 80s and 90s at some elderly homes here in town. And that's also due to the fact that we have a very large retirement community here in town. And it's there's an assisted living facility, a hospital, and then there's a whole campus of individual homes that are they're independent living homes, but they still have access to nursing and healthcare on site. So in those areas, taking the precautions and enforcing the precautions is completely reasonable. If we know that somebody is at risk, yeah, I'm going to mask up. I'm going to have my kids mask up. I'm going to sanitize my hands, and I'm going to respect the fact that these people are at risk. But as far as our schools go, our kids are being harmed more by having school closed than they're being helped. They really are. And not to mention the economic benefits to families and households not being able to work, people having to file bankruptcy, or people I know that are their marriages are not lasting through COVID. COVID is ending marriages right now, and a lot of it has to do with people's fear. And it's, in a lot of these cases, it's fear of the COVID monster or whatever they've worked up in their head. It's But even like my grandpa, he's in his 80s. He'd be susceptible to it, but he was. I can't quite remember the analogy that he was used, but he was like, I'd be more likely to be in South Dakota and have a salmon dropped from an eagle and kill me than die from COVID. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, there's no salmon in South Dakota. And it's like, all right. And he's like, and I'm not going to coop myself up at home and fear COVID. I've lived a good life. If I die, I'm in my upper 80s. And I hadn't really looked at it like that because my family, we had kept our distance for quite a while. And he was like, he would rather see us and take that risk than be isolated from his family. And then the same with like my wife's grandma and like she's like, and I've talked to multiple other elderly people that are like, I've lived through this and I've lived through this and I've lived through this and this. I'm not scared of COVID. I'm not gonna live in fear over some bug.
Yeah. And in total, what are your priorities for city council?
Well, yes, first priority would be safety of citizenry. We are, this is, like you mentioned before, one of the top safest towns in Oregon and in America. So we will, we have a strong police. People support their police here in town. And we haven't had any of the problems with rioting and the destruction and damage like there has been in Portland. But that's not a guarantee that it'll always be like that. So I will make sure that if it does start to happen like that, or if rioters do come into town and they start to destroy things, we will let our police know that they have our support. And we, as citizens, will be out there, guarding our small businesses as well, and that they are not alone, and that we will have their backs because of the service they do for us. So, yeah, the public safety is number one. I want my children to be safe. I want my neighbors' children to be safe. Everybody here in town, safety is paramount. Then after that, the livability of town. With our continuous growing, we need to make sure that we don't just grow town, make it bigger. We also need to make sure that we make it better. So just making skyscrapers or something is not going to make our town better. We need to focus on the continued livability of it and the cleanliness of our town and the appeal of our downtown area. And then lastly, there's, I brought up a little bit ago was transportation. Transportation is going to be a huge issue if they do put these toll booths in on 205. And it's there has been some ideas in the past of getting rid of our Canby ferry, which is a historical thing these days. And then there's also we milled around the idea of building another bridge across the Willamette so that we don't have that bottleneck at I-5. But it's if they build these toll booths, there has to be something done, whether it be that additional bridge or whether it be a I don't know, a transit lane that we do from the Hubbard Donald cutoff that just circumvents downtown area and just goes around, so that we don't have all this gridlock right down 99E. And that's, I will, most city councilors, they're not down in Salem lobbying because, you know what, they probably don't know enough about politics to do that, most of them. And if they do, a lot of them are, you know, overburdened with work obligations. I am flexible enough with my work that I will be able to go down to Salem, and I will be able to lobby, and I will be able to stand up for my small town. And I will be down there as much as I need to make sure that everything is taken care of, and that ODOT and the state do not forget about Canby.
So in terms of going and standing up for Canby, there's more than one position available for city council. Who do you recommend your residents also take a look at to help you achieve your goals?
I think Tracy Hensley, she has a decade of experience on city council here in town, and she's very, very knowledgeable and wise as far as politics goes. And then Jordan Tibbles, he's also conservative. He's also a prior Marine, and prior Marine and military police. He's got a great resume, and he really cares about Canby also. And his wife has been a long time, lifelong Canby resident, and they're raising their family here in town. And then there's Jason Patton. He's registered as a Democrat, but he's the most moderate out of the Democrats. And then, of course, I got to throw my own name in there, James Hieb. I can guarantee you that I will work harder than anybody else that is running. I may not have the most experience, but I have youth, motivation, and I am a hard worker, and I will not fail Canby. So, and I say I don't have as much experience. That's only because I haven't been elected to any sort of position before. You know, everybody has to have their first office, but I have had countless volunteer hours helping other people who are elected officials, and also helping behind the scenes, doing research and whatnot for the Capitol down in Salem. So it's I have enough experience to know that I will do a great job, and I have the motivation and the work ethic to get everything done.
So you're also a member of YRO yourself. What inspired you to join, and how can organizations like this be a help to Canby?
Well, for the last couple of years, I've been really wanting to get involved in state politics. You know, everybody sees on the news what's going on federally, and that's where most of people's attention is focused, is, federal politics, when they don't realize that, what really impacts our day-to-day lives is state politics and our local politics. And I was having a really hard time getting connected with either the state or local politics. And I would go to meetings, go to the county meetings or ORP meetings, and I was constantly the youngest person in attendance, and they'd be like, "Oh, it's great that you want to get involved. Oh yeah, well, have a good day." And it's like I'd leave these meetings going, "Okay, I'm no better off than I was. I still have no direction." And so back in January, was it January? I believe around January time, I'd gone to a Candace Owens event at the National Guard post, and I wound up linking up with Steven, and he was talking about how the young Republicans were kind of dissipated because a lot of the past leadership had moved on to bigger and better things. Like some of them got jobs at the Capitol, some were working for other elected officials elsewhere, and the organization needed like needed some work, needed revamping. So I was like, yeah, it sounds like right up my alley. And so at first we were just trying to discuss, okay, what do we do with this organization? And we decided we just want to get younger people, younger being people under 40, involved in politics, and find an outlet for them to get involved, because the county parties weren't doing it for us, and we're not the kind of people that are going to just sit around and wait for somebody to give us orders or wait for somebody to tell us where we're needed. We created the organization, and we've been drawing people to the organization, and it's given me a way to it's given me credibility to a certain extent to reach out to different counties across the state and be able to get calls back from all the other local leaders in our state. And so once they know, that I'm an executive on the Young Republicans and that I'm reaching out to candidate so and so, we'd get responses, and we started to gain momentum very, very fast. And soon it was our members, like we've had people that are just highly motivated, young people that have great talents and gifts that the county parties and the state party are just not taking advantage of. And so we wanted to be that the conduit for them to be involved. And whenever somebody comes to us and is like, oh yeah, I want to be involved, and we usually we'll ask them, okay, what are your skills? What are your gifts or your abilities? And then we find a position that suits them. And we have created an amazing team. And yeah, you mentioned that, we have that event coming up on Sunday where it's only our second Young Republicans event. And it seems to be that we are going to be very successful. It's very exciting, the progress we've made in such a short time. It's been about 10 months since we've really been working at this at the Young Republican team, and we are doing incredibly well. And the team we built is going to be the future leaders of Oregon, and we've kind of looked at the model that the Democrats have done here in Oregon to be so successful. And what they've done is they've connected on a personal level with individuals. And so we've been able to replicate that and, reach out and establish personal relationships with other Republicans in the state that care enough to get involved and volunteer their time. So these people that care about America and care about our state, volunteer their time, we're just making sure that, we have that there is a place for them to volunteer, since there are so many people coming out of the woodworks wanting to help and wanting to be involved that just haven't found that direction yet. And I'm proud to be involved in this effort of getting young people. Yeah, I guess in the Republican Party, young people means like under retirement age. It's there's a lot of us that it feels like it's been that we're forgotten about by the party, and they're starting to reach out to us and want us to be involved. And and see what we're doing, and they respect what we're doing, and they want to help us now. And it's very encouraging, and I can only wait to see what our future holds for us, because Oregon is on its way to turning red. If not completely, we're going to be competitive again with the Democrat Party, and that balance of power is greatly needed, so that we don't wind up with tyranny. Because if there's only one party and they have absolute control, we will wind up in a tyrannical state. So we are pushing back against tyranny with our organization, and I feel we are being successful.
Well, that's great to hear. And for the listeners' sake, when is the event? And
our event will be in Turner, Oregon on Sunday, October 18th. Mingling, people can show up a little bit early, but it officially starts at 2. Our speakers will be starting about 2:30, and we'll have about an hour of speaking, and then we're gonna have pulled pork sandwiches and hamburgers for dinner, as well as like salad and buffet and everything. Everything that I don't know. There's going to be a lot of food there, but we're also, we are aware that there is the COVID situation still going on, so we're also, we're taking the precautions there. We're going to have masks on site for anybody that needs one. We're going to have plenty of hand sanitizer stations, and we got our hand washing station, but it's we're going to have multiple guest speakers too. One will be Senator Hurd from down by Roseburg. We're going to have past state representative Jeff Kropp. We're going to have Senate candidate Joe Ray Perkins. And then we're going to have Trump victory teams. It's the Sportsmen for Trump. But they're going to be there. And then, and then I'll be speaking briefly, and Christina Malimon, she'll be speaking briefly. But that'll be down in Turner, Oregon. You can find out more about it on our Young Republicans of Oregon Facebook page, or youngrepublicansoforegon.com. And then we also have Young Republicans of Oregon Instagram and Facebook, YouTube. But so any of those platforms, you should be able to find more about it. And really, anybody conservative leaning or that's supportive of our president is more than welcome to attend. And even if you are a Democrat voting for Trump, we have a very diverse party. People look at Republicans and they think I don't know what kind of stereotype people have in their minds, but after getting involved, it is amazing how diverse the Republican Party is, with all sorts of race, ethnicities, I guess gender preferences or whatnot. If you look at the walkaway movement, I've never thought I'd see so many LGBT individuals joining the Republican Party. It seems like they're sick of the Democrats Party too, because they're not recognizing the Democrat Party as being the true blue Democrats of the past. The Democrat Party is being overrun by socialists and communists in our state. So it's anybody that just loves America is welcome to attend.
Great. And is there anything else on your mind that you want to let listeners know?
Oh, if you'd like to look into my campaign, you can. I'm not the best at web stuff, so I don't have a web page, but I do have a Facebook page where I'm doing constant updates, and I'm trying to post as much as possible. And if you would like to ask me any questions, you can contact me through at James Hieb for canbycitycouncil.com or at gmail.com. And I think that's all I got for you tonight.
Well, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast, James.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Have a good evening.
You too.
Get back to the campaign.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Young Republicans of Oregon podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Please consider donating by visiting our website, youngrepublicansoforegon.org. The donations will pay for political trainings for our volunteers, travel expenses so we can spread our message across the U.S., and better tech equipment. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have new episodes every other Monday.